You're listening to episode 87 of the Nichole Banks podcast. My guest today is Jen Conley, an ADHD expert. She's going to spill her secrets on how to thrive with ADHD. Welcome to the Nichole Banks podcast, where divorced women heal, grow, and find new love and dare to begin thriving. I'm Nichole, your divorce recovery coach and happy hour queen. If you're a Gen Xer ready to shake things up, level up, and have some fun, you're in the right place. Buckle up. We're getting into today's episode starting now. Welcome back to another empowering episode of the Nichole Banks podcast. Of course, I am your host, Nichole Banks, and today we are diving into a topic that affects many of us women, actually. It isn't often discussed, however. So what we're going to do is do that. It is ADHD. Our guest today is not only an expert in the field, but a true beacon of hope and inspiration. So joining us is an extraordinary ADHD consultant, hypnotherapist, and founder of Squirrel Mind Mastery. OMG, you know I love animals, but let's dig into that a little bit later. She's dedicated her career to helping individuals harness the power of their unique minds. And today she is here to share her wisdom with us. So whether you're navigating life post-divorce, managing the daily hustle, or simply seeking to understand more about ADHD, this episode is packed with insights, practical advice just for you. We're going to explore how ADHD affects women differently, the transformation power of hypnotherapy, and practical tips for staying organized and confident. Get ready to feel inspired and empowered as we uncover the secrets to mastering your mind and thriving in every aspect of your life. So, as I say, grab your favorite coffee, settle in, and let's welcome our amazing guest to the show. Welcome, Jen Conley.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am
That was
beyond
an awesome introduction. I couldn't have done it better myself.
Well, I am beyond thrilled that you are here and you said yes to the invite to be a guest on the show. I feel like it's interesting how, listen, I am a shiny object chaser. I come in, I'm going to share a quick story. I'll never forget. I used to work at a Chevy store. My boss name was Chris George. He was the director. And as a finance manager, I was the woman, and I did this for many, many years. So you may have heard me say something along the lines of this on the show, but I used to be a finance manager. So you go buy the car. I'm the one that does your title work. I'm the one that closes the loan for you. I'm the one that sells you the warranties, all the things. Okay. So that's me. That's my role. And I will never forget my boss, Chris, used to have a cardboard that said focus on it, the word focus, and would walk in front of my window. And I could see it. It was behind my customers, but I could see it because I literally would squirrel. I would see a piece of jewelry the customer was wearing. Now we're talking about jewelry. I would say, oh my gosh, you're doing this, or something off their jacket. I just literally squirrel. So what I find interesting is that, because I'm a Gen Xer and the majority of our audience are Gen Xers, we weren't really diagnosed with it back then in the day. So before we get into all of that, I do want to ask you, can you tell us a bit about your journey and how did you become an ADHD consultant?
Okay. Well, obviously, I've had it my whole life because it doesn't just develop. You have it or you don't. And like you said, they didn't diagnose it back in those days. But as I grew up, I would always joke that I was ADHD, like, haha, ADHD, because I knew that I was distracted easily. I knew that I forgot easily. I remember being worried about how I was going to remember anything when I got old because I was already so forgetful. And yeah, distractible as well. When I got the diagnosis, it was 10 years ago, I was 40. And I was running a company and I was getting very, very overwhelmed. And motherhood, a lot of women get diagnosed when they become mothers and their career and motherhood is finally too much. And they go to the doctor for anxiety. That's what I did. That's what a lot of women do. They either go to the doctor for their own anxiety or they go for their children, and it's hereditary. And I
Very
don't think that's
interesting.
talked about enough either. They go get their kid diagnosed. Chances are one of the parents, and since we weren't diagnosed when we were younger, even some boys in our generation, I think, got missed, but more girls, obviously. So I want to talk about more in respect to women because our symptoms are so different too. We aren't, my brother would literally be climbing the walls. He would be at the top of the hallway saying, Jenny, look at me.
Oh my gosh.
So his was very easy to recognize. But we do little things like I've got a little fidget thing that I'm messing with. Like I can't just sit still and do nothing. Yeah, there's yours.
As the audience can't see this, but what I am doing is I'm
Right.
holding up my little stone. It's literally I have to fidget as well. It is one of those things. And I used to
Mhm.
do the pin clicking until one of my
Yeah.
coworkers said, "Stop that. What are you doing? You're driving me crazy." And I thought it was calming to me. I'm like, click, 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 click. It would be calming to me. So I stopped pin clicking and found some
Yeah.
stones. So
Right.
yeah, I love that. Okay. So you became an ADHD consultant because of your own diagnosis and your
Because of
own.
my own diagnosis. And I honestly became a coach just because I wanted to help women. I wanted to help women quit beating ourselves up so much, quit
Mhm.
being so hard on ourselves. I became a coach after the pandemic, so it was even more magnified. I just I kind of went inward and thought, well, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? My kids getting older. I don't want to run someone else's business anymore. I would like to run my own again.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Because I have a lull in my hypnotherapy practice because I once I had Trisha, my daughter, I took her to work with me to run my family's business. And it all comes together because I, was kind of had a fear around running my own business back then. We're both showing our own ages here of because back then you had to advertise in the yellow pages and go buy
Absolutely.
an office
Yep.
space if you wanted to do that.
That's right.
So much easier in that respect to run your own online business. Now we have different hurdles. But yeah, so in 2020, I wanted to help women. And then I was doing my own learning. I learned NLP, and in a value uh, elicitation, it's kind of like 7 layers deep. You figure out like what your highest values are by saying, if I had this, then this would happen. And if I had this, I would feel this way. And I wrote at the very bottom that I realized my ADHD has touched everything that I have worked on for myself, the hypnosis, the imposter syndrome, the um women wanting my urge to help women not be so hard on ourselves. We are the hardest on ourselves. By the age of 12, the average ADHDer has 20,000 more criticisms than the average kid. That's
Crazy.
12.
That's crazy.
So when we grow up, the criticisms don't stop, right? My
Right.
husband did not understand me when I first met him. And that is another distinction that came with the diagnosis. I could explain myself better to the people I love and the people that love me.
Yeah. No,
And
I get it.
so
I get it. So
that
let's,
is also a way I wanted to help.
I love that. So you are going to be helping women in the audience. So what I want to do is for our listeners who might not be familiar, right? Can you explain what ADHD is and some common misconceptions about it? So what is it,
Okay.
first of all?
Well, the name is
Sure.
attention deficit hyperactivity
Oh,
disorder,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't like thinking of it as a disorder. People have different ideas, but I like to kind of harness the superpowers of it. Our brains just work differently. We use different parts of our brains too. We're good at things. I want to talk about what we're good at first.
Okay, let's go.
We're good at things like hyper focusing. If we really love something, you can't tear us away from it, which is why I think entrepreneurship is so great for ADHD women. And a lot of people, there's a misconception in that. A lot of people think, well, she can focus on that for hours. Well, it's because if we don't love it, if it's asked to sit still in school for 8 hours, That's like torture for us. Our brains need to be stimulated with something that we love. And it's hard to explain that to someone that isn't ADHD, how hard it is, how much harder than the average person it is to do something we don't love, like taxes, or just make ourselves do the mundane things like phone calls. If I have to pick up the phone to call and make appointments for myself, forget it. It's not going to happen. I've actually started putting that kind of stuff on my calendar, even just to call and make the appointments, because I do forget. If it's something we don't want to do, we will conveniently forget it.
Yeah,
And
for
I
sure.
really do forget it, but so forgetfulness is a big one.
Yeah.
There's RSD, which is rejection sensitivity disorder, but I think that is because of all the criticisms that we receive, because we don't think like other people. We don't fit in the box that everybody else fits in, and we're made to feel stupid because of it. I honestly thought I was stupid. I did not finish college because I thought I was stupid. That's when I became a hypnotherapist, because I was like, I had wanted to be a psychologist, and I was like, well, what would I be doing in my practice? And I would probably have, discovered hypnosis anyways. Just helping women and coaching and consulting is the way that I've done that. And I'm squirreling because I'm off the subject that you asked me.
What's so funny, I'm laughing so hard because I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing with you because this is so me. And I'm also practicing. The show itself has had like a good handful of people that I've interviewed. And I'm just trying to focus on the interview and listening because, I don't want to interrupt you or anything like that. But I'm like going, well, wait, where's she going with this? So my question is,
Right. Okay. And
can you
so,
explain it? And what are some misconceptions? You've answered that. Let's ask you this one. How can women recognize if they might have ADHD, especially if they have not been diagnosed? So
this
what
is
are
a
some
great
signs?
question. And I'm glad you asked me that, because in my mind, ADHD is something, if you think you have it or if you're wondering you have it, pretend like you have it, because no one wants to be ADHD. And, the diagnosis is very personal. I wanted to know because she gave me Wellbutrin, and Wellbutrin helps for the anxiety and ADHD. And so it was helping. But eventually I went back and I said, I just want to know. I want the diagnosis. I want to know if my ADHD is making me feel anxious, or if anxiety, if it's the symptom of it, the ADHD, or if I just have such anxiety that I feel scattered. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If you're like scattered and you can't hold a thought, if you forget a lot, if um, there's object permanence. If I put something up, I forget all about it. That is a very common one with ADHD. The rejection sensitivity. I think that is also one of our strengths. I think we feel on a deeper level. And I don't know the science behind that, but I do not know an ADHDer that isn't hella compassionate person. And we're very right-brained. We use our creativity a lot. We need to use our creativity a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
um I've pivoted to help ADHD entrepreneurs, because so many of us are. And yeah, I that's just kind of where I wanted to eventually go, is to
Yeah.
help women, and just uh in the entrepreneurial space.
Nice. Yeah, no, I love it. It's so interesting because I feel like, some of the signs that I was recognizing is literally I came in with my planner because my audience knows that I plan everything. If it's not in the planner, it's not necessarily
It
that
ain't
I can't be
happening.
spontaneous. I absolutely can. But when it comes to my work, Monday through Saturday, whatever, I have to go down my list of things that I literally can check off. Now, if I end up
Mm,
squirreling and doing something, which I can do in a heartbeat, I will come back to the planner and go, now where was I? Right. Or
mm,
I have learned to time block, especially on the projects that I'm not so passionate about. I will time block. I'll set up the
mm,
10-minute time to get it ready and get it going and refresh what I was needing to do, the actual 30 minutes of work that it's going to take me to do it, and the 10 minutes to unwind from it. Because within that time block, I'm able to hyper focus and get it done. Now, if I
mhm.
throw something out there and I don't time block, I'm like, oh, that's going to take me longer than I think it is. Or that didn't take me as long as I thought it was going to. And now my schedule's all disarray, right? But I also
Yeah.
know too, when I started personal development way back when. And I'm just going to let my audience know personal development, you guys have heard me say this before. That is something that I highly recommend. It's just picking something that you want to intrigue yourself on. So it could be a book, it could be a podcast, it could be, learning a new language, it could be learning something. It's just taking the time to do it on a daily basis. And when you're done with it, you should feel food for thought, like, oh, that was thought provoking, or oh, I really liked how X, Y, and Z. Okay. Well, in the
Hmm.
beginning of my personal development habit and my ritual, I would do like 30 minutes. I have to do 30 minutes of personal development. And it would always be a book. So I open up the book, I set my timer. Man, I don't even know what I read. I can't tell you how long. It took me 2 years to read a book. I'm not kidding. It was insane.
Mm.
But now I've mastered that it's a 10-minute thing and 10 minutes only. I set my
Mm.
timer, I read for 10 minutes. I don't care where I'm at in the book. I just finish the sentence or the paragraph of the book and I'm done. And I close the book and
Yeah.
I'm done because I will waste 20 minutes trying to figure out what I was doing, you know what I mean? I mean,
Hmm.
did I have lunch yesterday? I didn't even have lunch yesterday. And I'm just like all over the place.
Oh
So
yeah, that's another thing is our brain doesn't shut up.
yeah, yeah, it
It
is
does not shut
constant.
up.
It is
Hmm.
constant for sure. Okay. Let's talk about the impact because when you have a brain that doesn't shut up,
Hmm.
how does ADHD typically impact women differently than men,
Hmm.
especially in their personal and professional lives? So let's talk about the difference it impacts women to men.
Okay. Well, we mask. We try to pretend that we fit in with the box that everybody else does.
I
So it
agree.
gets
I
missed.
agree. I agree
And
with that.
in masking, we are harder on ourselves. So we go inward. And I remember telling my family one day, if I mess up, you don't have to beat me up because I promise you, I have beat myself up 10 times harder than you ever could. We take it all on ourselves. And so it's another way that we're missed. And so then that impacts us because we're beating ourselves up instead of everyone else. I think men are more extroverted in how they'll get it out of them. We take it all on and we take on everybody else's stuff too. And
Yeah.
then even to this day, if I mess something up, I just feel like subhuman. And that's not normal.
Aw. Big
No,
hugs to
I
you. Air
mean,
hugs.
thanks. I try not to let that happen, but I'm still a human, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. What are some common challenges women face with ADHD when it comes to relationships and or dating after divorce?
Relationships, very defensive.
Mm,
I used to be so defensive if I even thought my husband was criticizing me, and I thought he was manipulating me if he told me he was helping me. And there may have been some of that, guys. uh, they have a different mentality. They want to fix things.
yeah,
They're
absolutely.
just they're built differently than
Yep.
us, but we can tend to really get defensive when that happens, especially if we've received a lot of criticism growing up.
I really like the thought that when you approach your partner, whether it's a business partner, a relation, it doesn't even matter what the relationship is. It could be your
Hmm.
partner, it could be your sister, it could be a colleague. But when you approach the conversation, let's put it that way. When you approach the conversation, it's like, hey, I just need a vent. I'm not really looking for any
Mm,
problem solving. You just announce, I don't need your input. Or you
yes,
announce, I have a problem.
so
Can you come
important.
back to me with some input? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I mean, there's even just a distinction that my husband and I realized probably a year ago. We've been married um 18 years. There were years we did not know we were going to make it through that. So I've went through all of the ADHD and neurotypical marriage problems.
yeah.
But he told me here's one of the fights that we used to have. He says, I just want to understand. And I would explain. And then he would keep coming at me, what I perceived as coming at me. And he wasn't, I would say, you're not accepting my answer, because that he was still asking me. And I'm like, well, I explained. And he told me recently, I just have this need to understand. I truly want to understand. And if I don't understand, I can't let that go. And him explaining that in that way, when we were calm and not fighting,
Mm-hmm.
was so, I finally heard that, you know? And we don't have the same fights anymore. I really don't know, like, why. I think I can just explain myself better. I
Yeah,
also
nice.
quit reacting to him. And that
Mm.
is something that is very important. No matter how much you want to react, there's no reason to take up for yourself. If you're explaining yourself and they're not understanding, it is not your job to make them understand.
Yeah.
It's not your job.
Well, and the thing we have to remember is when we talk about things that we can't control
Yeah.
their reaction. So if they're not understanding and if they're whatever, we can do our best, right? But
Hmm.
sometimes we end up being just, spinning or chasing our
It
tail.
kept going in
Yeah.
circles.
And
Hmm.
so the reality is it's like, okay, listen, this is enough. I'm going to take what you had and I'm going to process it. Let me process. Right. And that's kind
Yes.
of, it's not an excuse. It's just a form of communication of like, this
Well,
is my
and
boundary.
he
This is,
used to not let me process. He thought
yeah.
that was me stopping the conversation. He would
Yeah.
say I was controlling the conversation and stopping the conversation. We just kept communicating, and finally I was like, listen, I just need 5 minutes. I think he thought I was stopping the conversation altogether.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just need a few minutes because I'm going to say something I regret if I don't. And
Yeah.
I think that's also something that we do. If we're pushed against, backed up into a corner, I think we can have very sharp words because it's the defensiveness
Sure.
again.
Sure. That makes
Yeah.
total sense. We also think of another common challenge, I feel like, with ADHD in a relationship is simply that we need our own space too. And there's
Mhm.
times where, your partner will say, hey, what about this or what about that? And it's just, listen, your work schedule is a little different than mine. I have to decompress when working with clients, or gather more information so I can help them in a better way, or have them help themselves in a better format. There's so many different things, and I decompress from my job completely different than he does. So there's
Yeah.
times where it's just, okay, I'm done working at 6 o'clock, but I need my 30 minutes to decompress from work. So let's meet in the middle. I'll see you in the kitchen at 7. Okay. And he's like, okay. But I really feel like any overcoming any kind of challenge is awareness, right? Is,
Hmm.
his awareness, our awareness. And then
And
of
then
course,
communicating
and
that.
then, and then of course, communication. That's right. Great minds think alike.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
But like communicating your needs, not just
Mm.
communicating, but finding out how they hear it better too. I'm honestly sometimes texting him how I was feeling was better for me than saying it, simply because I write better. I formulate my words and my feelings better in writing, and he received it better too. He could think about what he needed to say and say it back, even if they don't receive it better in text form. And this is even if you're like dealing with, because if you get divorced and you have kids, you still have to communicate
Right. Of
with
course.
that person.
Yeah. Of course.
So yeah, it's
I
still
love that.
like figure out what their communication style is, and ask for your needs of what yours are, because they might be very different.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with us. We were just finally able to say it in a way that the other person finally heard it. And
Yeah.
so try different things of how you need to communicate to that specific person. And if you think you might have ADHD, really do some research on how to communicate what you need.
I love that. Great advice. Do you have any success stories of clients who have overcome significant challenges with ADHD and have gone on to lead fulfilling lives?
I have a client that is autistic and ADHD.
Wow.
And anytime she like just needs to like call me and brainstorm, this is more in the entrepreneur, your messaging space, but your messaging is also communication.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have a hard time formulating how we need to say something. And so when she's like stuck in messaging, like she tends to overthink.
Mm-hmm.
That's another big
Mm-hmm.
one. We
Mm-hmm.
overthink everything. We will make it harder than it needs to be. And so chunking things down and simplifying is so important. I'm gonna squirrel a little bit because your thing about like having the planner, I can't do planners. I plan for the week, but then I don't have more than 3 things on there a day because it overwhelms me. So I see more of the big picture, and then I can chunk down little pieces, but having everything planned out doesn't work for me. So find what works for you because it could be different.
No, I love that.
She will keep trying to convince someone. She's like great at what she does, but she'll keep going in order to convince you. So she
Yeah.
still kind of had like her little imposter syndrome voice in the back of her mind of I need to convince them that I'm the authority in burnout. She's a burnout researcher, but um yeah, so I'm like, you don't even need that last part. You've already got them up here.
Yeah. I love that. And to think that she's a burnout coach or a burnout, right? It's just like, oh my,
hmm
so many, well, what's her name? So many of us need
We
her
all need
too.
a coach. We all need our own coaches.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are some practical tips and advice for women with ADHD to stay
hmm
organized and manage their time effectively? So you talked about the planner, but what else can you
hmm
offer to us?
Do whatever you either do the hard things in the morning or whatever there's a time of day that you're more in your zone of genius. Mine is in the morning.
Mm,
Probably when I was younger, it was probably late at night. Once you have kids and have to get up in the morning, you have to find it within your schedule. Mine is in the morning. So sometimes I have trouble deciding whether to work or work out because whatever I do in the morning, I do the best. If I wait to work out, sometimes I won't. I'm creative. I get more done if I come and start in the morning and get
okay.
some quiet time. It's quiet.
Okay. So
Um,
finding your magic moments or finding your magic
mhm.
time. Okay. What
Right.
else?
To do whatever it is. If there's a hard call that you need to make, if there's a conversation that you're needing to have, maybe just take some time to write it out. Here's something cool that I've been doing lately is I've been keeping a thought journal. It's
Mhm.
not a gratitude journal. And it's not even the thoughts that I'm having. I journal on the thoughts I want to have. What
Nice.
thoughts do I want to have today? And
Yeah.
it usually goes into like a bigger vision of what I want, but our thoughts are so important. I guess that's the last thing I really think is important that I want to touch on. The thoughts that you're having every day and that you're allowing into your brain really matter. So if you keep ruminating on something, your brain and you ruminating is what's keeping it alive. So really try to catch that in the moment and visualize it going away if it's something that you don't need to be thinking about over and over again. If it's already happened, then your thoughts are keeping it alive.
No, I totally agree with that. And my listeners know that I'm a big person in regards to whatever the circumstances, you have thoughts behind it. And of course,
Mm,
those thoughts will create the feelings, those feelings will create the action, and the actions will
yep.
create the results,
And then
right?
it influences more thought.
Absolutely. What's
Yeah.
interesting though is that if we really think about it, like statistically, the average person has anywhere between 50 and 60,000 thoughts a
Mhm.
day.
I
And
wonder how many more an ADHDer has.
it's anywhere between 15 and 20,000 additional thoughts a day. That's
Mm.
a lot of thinking going through our heads.
Yes,
So
it
one
is.
of the things I do every night is a brain dump. It's one of my sleep tricks for myself. I
Mm.
literally have a pad and paper. I try really hard not to sleep with my phone. Okay. I've
Mhm.
gotten into that habit of sleeping with my phone again because my daughter was pregnant and she's had the baby. All is good, but I'm
Mm.
still kind of a little, I overthink the stress
Oh,
about,
yeah.
maybe she's
Oh,
going to
man,
call
you're in
me.
the mom worry all over again.
Yeah. It's like she might call me. She might need my
Yeah.
advice, whatever, whatever. But
Yeah.
the thing that I do is I will open up my pad and paper and just literally write down words. Sometimes I'll write sentences. Majority of the time I don't. And then
Mm,
I will shut the book, take a deep breath, and then I'm like, my brain is empty. My thoughts are empty, if for the most part, right? And there will be a time or two where I'll
that's
go, oh,
great.
it'll trigger another thought. I'm like, oh, I should turn off the light, open that up, and write it down. But it releases the holding tank of thoughts, right? The
Yeah.
Rolodex of thoughts. And then there's times too where if my schedule's a little different, whether I'm traveling, or at my daughter's house or I'm on vacation or something along those lines, and I don't get in, I'm not into that habit or that routine, then it'll wake me up. But I'll go to my notebook and I'll open it up at
Mm.
3, 4 in the morning, jot it down, and then go right back to sleep.
You know what? That's so important because your brain does all of its, your subconscious does all of your deleting and distorting and generalizing while you're asleep. And so that's probably really helping you. You're getting
Yeah.
all the junk out for it, so it doesn't have to like do that. And that will help you keep a control of what you're holding on to or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree. It allows me to sleep is what it basically does for me in the
Mm,
long run. That's the immediate goal and the immediate reward, right? Is I'm able to sleep calmly or peacefully. So I love that. Let
mhm.
me ask you this. How do you see the future of ADHD treatment evolving? And what new
Mm.
methods or therapies are you most excited about?
I just love that people are talking about it. It's not something that was talked about at all for so long. And I do, here's another misconception. I see people saying there's so many diagnosed, everybody's just getting diagnosed now. No, the people that were missed are getting found. It's not something you want to have.
Oh,
Believe me,
say
you
that,
don't want to have it.
say that again. Say that
Which
again.
part?
That
That
people,
people that were missed are getting found? Yeah,
yeah,
we're learning more about it and we're talking about it. And so I think that's the biggest thing. I think we're going to learn more and people are going to do more studies on women. There's not that many studies done on women. They're just starting.
great.
They're applying the studies of boys and men to women. So there's also alternative medicine. I hate that there's a shortage right now. I'm not medicated right now because my insurance changed and you have to go get a physical every week. And so I wanted to be a guinea pig also for my clients of what does it look like if you're not medicated? It's a
Mhm.
personal choice whether to be or not be. I drink a
Sure.
lot of coffee. There's also a lot of natural like drinks, powders you can put in your drinks now. Nootropics is what
Mm.
they call them.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of alternative medicine out there that is coming out. There's apps. I haven't found one of the apps that I love, to be
Okay.
honest. If I
Okay.
do, I will let you know. Um, but yeah, I just think there's so much information out there now that you can go and find and make sure that if you're having anxiety, if you think you also have an ADHD, look into that diagnosis because anxiety medicines do not help if you have ADHD. They're not going to help your anxiety because it's stemming from the ADHD.
Yeah.
Something like Wellbutrin or something that helps both is what's going to work for you.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to the thinking, right? It's the thought, right? And
Mhm.
we know what anxiety is. My listeners know what anxiety is because we talk about it. Anxiety is stressing or overthinking the outcome of something
Mm.
that hasn't happened yet,
Gosh,
right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then it just creates this, well, what if, well, should I, or did I, or could I, or and you just,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's
And
like
what if
literally.
it's something better?
Yeah, absolutely. Think of all the things that we overthink. It's just
Ah,
insane the things we
yeah.
overthink, and it doesn't even happen that way, right? I
Right.
have a I have a client right now that catastrophizes everything. I have a
Mm.
small section of my brain that will catastrophize stuff, but
Mhm.
she catastrophizes everything. Like she'll have a pain in her back. Oh, now she's dying of spinal cancer. It just
Yeah.
literally everything. And it's just it's overwhelming. Her thought process is very
Mm.
overwhelming. She is on medication for anxiety.
Mhm.
And it's getting better. I feel like her medication is actually helping. She was
Good.
not diagnosed with ADHD, but her thought process and patterns are just really, really interesting to me.
Mm.
As a coach, you're like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, that may be in her mind what's kept her safe all the time. She thinks that mapping out everything that could happen is keeping her safe when that we know that's the opposite of what's happening because
Yeah.
she's allowing the negative thoughts to keep going.
Yeah.
Something that I've been doing is I don't allow those thoughts to stay if they come in. They do come in, but they get kicked right back out.
Yeah. How do you do that? How do you kick them back out? Can you tell us?
Well, it's a skill to recognize it, I guess. But I cancel it. I refocus my attention. I have no room for negativity at all. Like
Love it.
basically I have my head in the sand and I am okay with that. And that is the mental state you need to be in if you want to bring higher um goals into your life.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Huge advocate for that for sure. So tell us about your Squirrel Mind Mastery Program.
It is a community of women for female entrepreneurs in the online space where we bring our sales pages, our copy, whatever you're working on, whatever messaging you're working on, and it's other people's eyes on your stuff because we don't see our own stuff. It's hard to get our messaging right, especially for ADHD. It is also like for mental, that what we just talked about kicking out all of the negative thoughts that are blocking you
Yeah.
from living into your highest potential, because if you're worried about all of the things, then your subconscious doesn't know that your worry isn't where you want to go. It does not know negatives. So if you're like, I don't want to be poor, it's like, oh, you want to be poor, okay. It doesn't understand negatives, so
Yeah.
try to keep the negative thinking out.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. Do me a favor. Can you tell my listeners how to get in touch with you and potentially learn more about your Squirrel Mind Mastery Program?
I am Jen Conley ADHD almost everywhere. On
Okay.
TikTok, I'm Jen Conley ADHD coach, I think, but you could find me by just typing in Jen Conley ADHD. I'm Jen Conley ADHD on Instagram, and I'm on Pinterest and LinkedIn as well. If you type in those words, you'll find me.
Awesome. And I'll also put it in the show notes for those that want that for those that are squirreling right now.
Right. And I also can, just help you not squirrel. Besides entrepreneurial journeys, I help a little bit with just the regular day-to-day stuff.
Let me ask you this. What final words of encouragement would you like to leave our listeners with?
My favorite quote is, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent."
Amen. And this is not a spiritual podcast, but I'm just like, yeah, I love that. Bravo, right? It's so cruel that we have to remember that that's exactly it. The minute we do allow that, that's a boundary that we've let go of, right?
And we pick up the mantra and keep saying it to ourselves. That means we're a part of us is still believing that. And when you can trust your own ideas about yourself over anyone else's, that's where true freedom. It's true freedom of other people's thoughts of you as
And
much
that
as you can have.
And it just feels so good when you are
Mhm.
not stressed or worried about what other people think of you. I think that's one of the biggest
It's the only
gifts.
good part about being older, getting older. We don't
We don't.
care
And I
so.
truly feel like that was one of my biggest gifts. I mean, to myself, right?
Mm,
It's like, it's none of
mm.
my business what other people think of me. I mean,
Yes, I love
really,
that. I
it
say
is
that a
not my
lot
business
too.
what other people think of me. I'm sorry. I'm going to do my
It's
thing.
not.
I'm going to do my thing. The other day,
Hmm.
my husband and I were with our friends, Bobby and Cindy, and we went to
Hmm.
live music. And then we went to a happy hour at the end. It's called The Hidden House in Chandler, Arizona. The cutest little posh little fun little place to go.
Sounds.
It was in the evening, so it's at 11 o'clock at night. They close at 11:30. The restaurant's literally closing. The misters were on, the patio lights were on, they had pavers in the grass. And I just went, oh my gosh, I just want to dance here like no one's watching. And Cindy goes, well, do you want me to record you? And I'm like, yes, I do. I want you to record me.
I was
And
just
I
gonna say,
did it.
so did you?
I did it. I did like 3 or 4 little twirls and, I walked a little bit. We did it a couple of times. She gave some great direction. And then, you know what? Some guy was walking by and Bobby goes, oh, there's people coming. I'm like, I don't care. I like literally, it's none of my business what other people think of me. I just like,
you won't see those people again.
yeah, once you get that, you will have such a freedom. And the freedom is the less burden. You don't carry that burden anymore, right? And what other people think of you. No more judgment. I just love that. I love, 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 love it.
Right.
Jen, our time has come to an end, but I tell you what, girl, I appreciate you. I love you and what you're doing for women in this space. I think it's very important that we continue this conversation. I just appreciate you so much. And I look forward to hearing what my listeners have to say about this podcast episode. And I can't thank you enough. And of course, I'm a follower of yours on Instagram. I'm going to go find you on TikTok. I will do that for sure and support you that way as well. But thank you for being who you are. And I am so glad you were diagnosed to figure it out to help other women. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll keep the conversation going. I appreciate you. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Listen, have a great day. Of course, you're listening to the Nichole Banks podcast. I am your host, Nichole Banks. Don't forget to like, share, and follow. And we will see you in the next episode. That's a wrap for today's episode. I hope you're feeling as refreshed as a spiked lemonade on a hot day. If you love what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and spread the love. Want to go deeper? Check out my courses, women's retreats, and the Dare to Begin membership, where we put everything we've learned into action. NicholeBanks.com. Don't forget, I spell my name with an H. NicholeBanks.com. Until next time, keep leveling up and dare to begin.